Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cardistrytalk. This is episode 57, and today I'm joined by Baptiste. He is an awesome member of the community. He is a French cardist who has a lot of focus on fans, started stripy playing cards. He's a really awesome cardist. I'm super happy to have him here to hopefully give us some insights on fans. Baptiste, welcome to the show.
Hello, happy to be here. I guess to say that I'm part of the community, I mean, it's been a while since I really posted anything or be really active in the community, so I hope my insights are still somewhat relevant, but happy to be here, and I really love what you're doing.
So it'll be really happy to give the people a little bit of update on what's going on with you, and I'm sure just with the amount of experience and posts you've made regarding fans that I'm sure there's going to be some quality insights there. At least for me. So my first question, just to kind of break things, get a little icebreaker, is just kind of how did you get into cardistry and how did you get into playing cards?
As a lot of people got into cardistry, I got into cardistry from Magic. So I started I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something. I think I was 13 or 12. Where basically in holiday, so somebody was doing card magic and so, oh, that's pretty cool. So I actually picked up a deck of cards and started to do magic tricks and everything. And that's when on YouTube I sort of found videos from, I don't think it's really relevant anymore, but Zach Mueller from Tiny Cards actually did a lot of cardistry and magic videos on dubstep music and everything. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I absolutely wanted to do that. But I mean, I really like the aspect of flashy magic and something that is really flashy and that when you look at it, it's sort of impressive because, it's flashy and everything. And that's actually got me more into flashy sort of magic and also into cardistry, but while still having something into magic because to me, and I think it was also my entourage and the person around me didn't think cardistry was really cool. It was a means to do magic, always linked to magic, and so I sort of kept something magic for a while, actually for a year or two, before I just completely just stopped doing magic altogether and just leaned more into cardistry. But I think it's really Zach Mueller and also Daniel Madison also. I'm not sure he still does cardistry, but back in the day, I remember his DVD, I think it was Dangerous from Theory 11. It was really old school cardistry. I think it aged pretty well. But I was really impressed that was in what he was doing, and all of this stuff sort of got me into cardistry. And I remember back in the day I had a YouTube channel that I deleted because it was pretty bad. But I was I think a year after I started doing magic and everything, I already started creating my own flourishes and publishing tutorials on YouTube and everything. It didn't work really well, but they were pretty bad. So I started into magic and just leaned on cardistry afterwards.
Yeah, so I think that's how most cardists kind of get into cardistry, is through magic. There are some people, especially younger kids now, starting to pop up that got into cardistry from cardistry, which is pretty cool. But it's always nice.
Yeah, I think now cardistry becomes a bit more relevant and a bit more separated from magic, whereas 10 years ago it wasn't a thing.
And so you get into cardistry, and I'm just kind of curious, why did you put so much focus into kind of fans and spreads? What about those attracted you?
Well, I think, maybe it's only personal, but I find them way more impressive than cuts. Because, into my eye, and for a while, I've never really seen the difference between cuts. When I see a cut, now I'm not really into cardistry anymore, but when I scroll through Instagram, I still see a lot of cardists because it's mainly what is into my Instagram feed, and I don't really see the difference in what really makes a cut particularly better than another. I can see a good cut, but you give me 10 different cuts, I won't necessarily see it as different moves, if that makes sense. Whereas when you look at fans and everything, and I mean, I think the argument could be the same for fans, because just, well, you're fanning cards and you have a fan. But I guess I was more drawn to it because, first of all, you see that it's playing cards that are being manipulated, and I think it's something that was really appealing to me with cardistry at first, is because you take an object that everybody knows, just a deck of 52 cards that you use to play poker or everything, and you do something completely different. And when you do a fan, I mean, you see the tips, you see that it's an object that everybody knows, but nobody knows that it can be used like this. And when you do cuts and everything, it's still seen as a way to shuffle a deck, and it's maybe like not as impressive as when you do a fan or spreads and everything, where you see that it's playing cards, you see all the tips, you see the clubs, the spades and everything, but you're not shuffling. It's useless, essentially. It's just beautiful to see, but it's really useless. And whereas when you do cuts and everything, it's just shuffling the deck, and so I guess it removes a sort of artistic expression to what you're doing. Yeah.
And something I'm just thinking of now that I just thought of is a lot of the moves that tend to show off every card, like springs and fans and spreads, waterfalls, stuff like that. That's what kind of laymen and like normal people think are probably the coolest, because you can do like packet cuts.
Exactly.
Like you said, most people will just think it all kind of looks the same, at least for laymen. But if you do the spring, they'll ask to see the spring again. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
I think there is something about one seeing every card, and then because when you do packet cut too, they all just kind of become blocks, and it's almost as if they are playing cards, but they're the blocks of it.
Well, I mean, that's the birth of trainers, was basically from that. I don't know if it's still really relevant, but
trainers.
I mean, a lot of people used a lot of trainers, and I really didn't like that trend, because I think it's pretty sad that you remove the playing card aspect of cardistry. I mean, it's interesting because you expand the concept, and actually you can do, but everything that you can do with trainers, you can do with playing cards, I think. I mean, it's maybe harder because you have you can drop the cards and packets can split and everything, but you remove the aspect of cardistry and it just becomes manipulation of blocks of wood, of resin. I think it's pretty sad.
Yeah, you kind of miss that magical aspect that you were talking about, where it's like an ordinary object that you're able to do, that everybody knows that you show you can do amazing things with. A quick question I have for you, that might be pretty broad, but is there just any overall fan tips that you have, any overall thoughts you have on how to do better fans?
I think like a big tip is something that I guess is valid for everything. I mean, in life, but in cardistry, it's just you have to train and just practice is I think the best tip, because I feel like there's a lot of cardists. I mean, when I was looking more into it, that's always find excuses because there wasn't any tutorial to do a move, there wasn't anything to. But I mean, that's the point of cardistry, is that you see everything, and everything is under your eyes, contrary to magic, where you need an explanation because it's hidden. In cardistry, you see everything, and there's no trick. It's just practicing. It's what will get you to. I mean, practice makes perfect. And there's, in general, I don't think there is any tips, and I think it's particularly true for fanning, because you have to the essential trick, contrary to cuts, where you need to, I mean, find the right position of your finger to go into the packets. With fanning, it's way more knacky than that. You have to apply the right pressure to do a fan. It's all a question of really delicate stuff that it's not really. I mean, it's not really explainable. You have to test what works. I mean, everybody's hand is different, and I think it really comes down to that, and also the deck that you're using, because I mean, if you're using a crappy deck, it's going to be pretty hard, and you can make it easier for yourself. Even though with practice, and I mean, I realized that now that with practice I can do fans easily on more decks than before. Than when I was starting, the deck had to be like the exact right condition, otherwise I couldn't do the move. And I mean, now I guess it's more versatile, and I can show. I can do my moves with a wider range of quality decks. But especially it comes down to practice. And I guess if you want practical tips to have the right condition, I would say buy fanning powder, because fanning powder does everything. Otherwise, because it's good to have a slippery deck, but if it's a slippery deck that you can't control, like a brand new deck, when you just open a new bicycle deck, you can put it in your hand and just by twisting a bit, everything's going to fall. It's just too slippery. It's not possible. And if you give me a brand new deck, I'm not going to be able to do something else than a thumb fan, because it just doesn't hold. And for example, I'm thinking of when you do a 360 fan. The cards are really, they're holding themselves together, and you're not holding very much. It's just that the cards stick together just enough to be, to hold in your hand, and not too much that you have a clumpy deck and just clumpy and everything. So I guess in the end, you just have to have like a broken in deck that you powdered, and just sufficiently old so that the cards don't fall every time you try to do something. So if that makes sense.
And when you say too, that's something Ryan Beckard said last week, with how it's just can be really hard to teach a move just through like tutorials, because everybody's hands are so unique and everybody's pressure is going to be slightly different, and all of those things. It's things that you kind of have to fill out for yourself. So, like you said, practice doesn't make perfect, but it can make you a lot better.
No, yeah.
And then with deck conditioning too, that's something he also picked up on. And whether you're doing fans or packet cuts or aerials, whatever you're doing, you do really want to try to get a deck that's focused for that movement type, I guess you could say.
Also there's a lot of decks that work. It doesn't have to be focused on that. Essentially all the decks coming from USPCC or Cardistry, they work. I don't know how it's, but for example, in France, we don't have quality decks right at our supermarkets, like in the US. I believe you can buy your bicycle at every shop in the US. Whereas in France, we have decks of cards that are of really bad quality, like the old Cardistry decks before I think it's Cardistrytalk got to work with Cardistry. Before that, the decks were really bad quality, and still now the quality of Cardistrytalk decks aren't available in the supermarket. And so I think to do fanning, every bicycle would work, every deck. Every deck coming out of USPCC can work, and basically every deck coming from the Cardistry community works as well. You just have to work on it long enough to be broken in and put fanning powder. Fanning powder really changed everything. I think in my Instagram feed you can see that I think there's a post where I bought my first pot of fanning powder, and just before there wasn't fan, and after there was a lot of fan. I think it played a huge role.
Yeah, I think we're pretty spoiled here in the United States when it comes to having access to all the UPC deck or USPCC decks. Sorry, just like at gas stations and Theory 11 decks at Targets and stuff. So we're pretty lucky in that aspect that we have USPCC on the same country. But yeah, like you said, just getting one deck from USPCC, you can do a lot of really good stuff with that, and they last a really long time if you properly handle them, take care of them. I know you talked about this a lot just now, but do you have any thoughts on or tips on deck conditioning or how to use fanning powder to the best of its ability?
Yeah, I don't think you can overdo fanning powder. A lot of my decks last a really long time because whenever they just don't work anymore, I put more fanning powder on and they just work. So I don't think you can overdo fanning powder. If that's even though it's pretty cheap and it lasts a lifetime. I bought one pot 7 years ago, and I still haven't finished it, even though I feel like, I mean, now a bit less, but there was a time where I was using it basically 3 times a week on different decks, and I mean, it's still not finished. And it won't make your deck worse. I don't think so. I mean, it has never made any deck worse for me, actually. So yeah, I would say invest in fanning powder. It's like definitely worth it. And yeah, I mean, for conditioning, just breaking the deck. I would say when you buy a new deck, you just break it in until it gets a bit clumpy when you start, because I mean, it's always pretty smooth when you're doing fans and everything at the beginning, for thumb fan and everything. And just once it gets a bit clumpy and you can't really do a smooth fan anymore, I guess that's the time when you can put fanning powder, because I've tried doing putting fanning powder just when I open the deck, but that doesn't work well because it's going to take like way longer to break in. But I don't really know how fanning powder works, but I think I've read once that it absorbs humidity on the cards, and that's what makes it less clumpy, because humidity is what makes the cards stick together and make the deck clumpy and pretty old. So if you do that on a brand new deck, basically there's no humidity to absorb, and therefore it's pretty useless. So I would say, yeah, for conditioning, just buy a new deck, try to break it in, and buy doing cuts and springs and everything, and just with dirty hands and everything, so it's pretty, it's faster. And then just putting fanning powder. And yeah, you asked me how to use fanning powder. I have a specific technique, but I think it's from School of Cardistry. They made a tutorial like, I don't know, 10 years ago on how to use it, because I think there's a lot of ways to do. There's a lot of people that I've seen that they just put a deck in like plastic bag, put a lot of fanning powder, and just shake the bag. And I never tried this. So it's pretty weird. But I mean, I don't have my fanning powder now, so I can't really show you. But I think you just do like this thing where you do a waterfall. Then you're putting the powder like this. You close. You have the edges, and then you just count the cards like this in order to spread evenly the fanning powder on all the cards, and just do that like 2 or 3 times, and doing springs and faro to really evenly put out the powder throughout the cards, and works pretty well. So
okay, yeah, that's cool. That's a slightly different method than what Ryan had said, so it's nice to see the different options. And obviously I've seen the baggy technique, but I don't know that I trust that personally. So once you have a good deck and it's conditioned and it's feeling good, some other things that you might want to take into account is the design of a deck to make fans and look good. Do you have any favorite card designs or back designs for fans? Obviously Strikey's probably one of them. But
But to be honest, I don't really have necessarily favorite designs, because I mean, as I said earlier, what I really like is showing that it's a normal deck of cards. And I mean, a lot of people created decks that are made for cardistry. I'm thinking of School of Cardistry or Cardistrytalk. They made decks with no faces, well, just backs overall. And I guess it's beautiful in a way, because I mean, it creates neat displays and see the colors intertwine and everything. But since it loses this normal object part of cardistry that I really like, I think I don't really like it like that, because I like my cards to be seen as cards. And when you look at, when you talk about back designs, personally, I often do my fans on with the face showing, because I think it's more diverse, and I like this diversity and this. First of all, because you see that it's playing cards, but also because there's a lot of color. There's a lot of, I mean, it's always different. Sometimes you have a lot of red, sometimes you have a lot of black, sometimes it's really intertwined, and I like this kind of diversity. I mean, it's the same, for example, when you do and you have the tips, and if you do it in the other hand, you have the line, and it's this kind of diversity that I really liked, that I really like, and that I also sort of like with my deck. And I think it's what I particularly like is the fans itself and the displays themselves rather than the designs that it makes that make sense. Because I mean, I can do. I remember when I was learning the 360 fans earlier, like I don't know, 5 years ago, the one-handed 360 fan. Whatever the deck it was made on, I found it really impressive because it was beautiful. And but no matter what deck was used, and so I guess it never really mattered to me. And before I had my cards, I often used like standard decks. I never really used artsy decks. I use a lot of Tallyhos and Arcos, and I mean Fontaines a bit, but not really. But I never really concentrated on the back designs themselves, but more on what you can do with them. And so for fanning, I really liked. Oh yeah, I really like the Anglo card. And the card is by Predator, I think. I mean, it was really hard to find actually. I don't know. I mean, I bought it in the Singapore shop online. It was pretty shady, but yeah, I really like the Anglo cards. And I think they're beautiful as well for fans.
Yeah, that's one that Ryan said too. Apparently, they are only like available in Sweden or something.
Yeah. I contacted the company to print my cards with Anglo stock and quality, but they never answered. So pretty sad. It would have been pretty cool to have stripy decks on Anglo paper. And pretty unique.
Yeah, definitely would have been really cool. And then, so we kind of talked about the back designs, and then you obviously mentioned Anglo. Are there any other decks that you feel like out of the box or just in general kind of gravitate really well for fans or work really well for fans? Any stocks or decks specifically besides what we mentioned?
Well, I mean, a lot of decks are actually pretty much the same. So, I mean, when you take a Virtuoso deck or a Bicycle or a Fontaine, I mean, in the end, they have the same paper and the same stock and everything. Maybe they're not crushed stock or something like that. But to be honest, right now, and I mean, ever since the first stripy deck, I've pretty much never used any other deck because, I mean, I have a lot of stripy decks now, so I don't necessarily care anymore if I make them dirty or just lose them or something like that. And it's pretty, it's a relief, actually, because I remember before, I mean, especially I was like, I don't know, 15, 16 years old. I mean, it was my parents that were buying my cards. And therefore, I always paid a lot of attention to my cards, and it was almost stressful in a way. And so, for like, it's been, I don't know, 5 years? 5 years since I did my first deck. And I mean, it's been 5 years that I only use 2AP decks because I have lots, and I mean, they handle well. I don't find them ugly, so it's more practical.
Yeah.
So, but I guess before I used a lot of classic decks. I had some Virtuoso SS15, I think, that I used a lot, but
yeah. I think that's a common misconception right now too, is like that certain brands have better quality cards when usually they're using USPCC and they're getting the exact same stocks and stuff.
Right.
I think that's something a lot of new people don't realize. There are small differences just because they might be getting their paper from slightly different sources or things might be.
But I mean, I don't know, for maybe they have like better insights and everything, but when I was doing inquiries to do my playing cards, I didn't have the choice. I mean, it was either and the stock was either bicycle stock or Aladdin stock. Oh no, it was finishes. You had air cushion finish or smooth finish, and that was pretty much it. You could use crushed stock or not crushed stock, and crushed stock was more expensive. But I mean, when you buy, I can say that I'm 90% sure. Maybe it has changed since. But when you buy a deck that has been printed at USPCC, it's always going to be the same, because I mean, nobody prints on smooth finish because it's not really good. I mean, I don't think so. And like 90% of the time, I mean, it's always going to be the same deck. It's the linoid finish, or that is, I mean, Tallyho, I think they're linoid finish. Aristocrats were linen finish. I mean, they're all the same finish. It's just that I think like 100 years ago, when USPCC bought off Aristocrats and Tallyho and everything, It was different names, but for basically the same technology, and they just merged into the same thing. But historically, it's different, but right now it's still the same. And I think the only difference you can have in quality, in stock, and in finishes is if you buy a deck from USPCC or Card or Hansen Chien. I don't know if it still makes card, but yeah, if you buy from different factories, but from the same factory, it's always going to be the same deck. I think Card has maybe it has changed, but back in the day they only had one finish. It was always the same. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but you just have to take that into consideration when you buy a deck at 200 euros on eBay that you just buy a design.
Yeah, and I think where's it going? Oh, Cartamundi. I think Cartamundi now has a couple of styles of stocks, but I think their finish is basically the same. So yeah, if you want to try different filling cards to the people listening, I would say buy from different factories is going to be the easiest way to get unique filling cards, or just go for really old stuff like wins or vodkas that are still
in a big blue seal
different process, or they're made completely different.
Yeah.
So obviously when doing fans, it's a little bit different from packet cutters when creating moves or kind of mastering moves. I think most people in the community right now are packet cutters. Did you have any creative process when trying to make fans or variations of fans when you were active?
I guess I didn't really have, but I mean, when you look at my Instagram, I wasn't really a creative cardist in terms of fans. Like, I did a lot of stuff that were already created. I mean, I did a lot of Predator stuff, or like just really old stuff that I kind of took back and tried to do. But I guess for the few original moves that I have, I guess it's always either an idea that I have in my head. For example, I'm thinking of the square fan. Like I did, I think I did some time ago. Just because we all know just fan, just split fan, you can do a triangle like that. And I had the idea to do a square fan. I didn't really know how to do it, but through try and error, I just succeeded in doing some kind of square fan. It wasn't really beautiful or just it's pretty bad move, but it was a square. And so it's just the idea of having something in mind and trying to find a way to do it, because I mean that's the difference between fans and cuts, I guess, because when you do fans, the goal of a fan is the fan itself. It's not really the way to get into the fan. I mean, it can be. I'm thinking maybe this is almost like a cut in itself, because you do a fan. It's just the fan itself. You don't really display it. It's more something that happens in between the beginning and the end. Whereas packet cuts, the goal of the move is just the journey from the beginning to the end, just not because at the end there's no display and everything. And so I guess that's what works with fans, to create fans, is that you have an idea in your head and you just try to do it. And I think I had quite a lot of ideas that I actually never succeeded in doing. Like I wanted to do, the square fans, I had ideas where you just have a fan into your pinky and just here, and I really never succeeded in doing that. But I guess to create fans, you have to have an idea in mind and have a display in your mind, and you want to do, I don't know, like a triple fan displaying or something else, I don't know. But just having this idea in mind and try to achieve and to get to this idea, to get to this display. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and that's kind of how it works for me too, is where I'll have like an idea or kind of like an end goal. I wouldn't say like I'm like a lot of packet cutters right now, where they kind of just they almost start from the beginning and then make their way to their end until they're like satisfied. Whereas like for me and for fans, it sounds like too, like you have a kind of an end goal of what the end, like you almost start with the end, like what you want it to look like at the end, and then you kind of reverse engineer, how do I get to that point? Which is kind of different than packet cutters right now. A lot of my moves are like aerials or display, like packet displays more so. So it is interesting, kind of that differential from kind of what is normal right now is you start at the start and then you find the end, whereas for displays and fans and stuff like that, it's almost the opposite.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
So we talked about creating. One thing that I think people that focus on fans kind of really focused on is kind of perfecting moves and kind of getting every space perfectly spread out, especially with spreads as well. Do you have any tips or any thoughts on how you can do better to perfect your move and have it down, Pat?
I would say use fanning powder because I'm not really, I'm kind of a perfectionist, but a lot of times I got actually frustrated because I couldn't perfect anything. That was sort of a reason why I started to stop posting because I always wanted everything to be perfect and I just couldn't do it. But fanning powder helps a lot actually. I recommend everybody to try it out at least once. You're going to see that even your thumb fans and everything, it makes everything perfect more easily. It's really it's really that, to be honest. And practice. I practiced a lot cardistry back in the day just by watching a series on my computer and just having a deck of cards in my hand and doing stuff with it. And just by, I think that's what's pretty good with cardistry is that you can do cardistry and do something else at the time. At the same time. And therefore, if you want to perfect a move, try to make it natural and try to make it just brainless. You don't have to think of it, and if you don't have to think of it, you can do it and perfecting it without actually thinking of it, and just you can do something else at the same time. I guess that's really the end goal. For me, with cardistry and with the moves that I was practicing and doing, is that they become natural and they become just part of my muscle memory rather than just me thinking of it.
Mm-hmm. And it's always like a process to get to that point. I don't think, at least for most moves, when you start out, it doesn't become like muscle memory, something you can do while watching TV or homework or whatever. Mm-hmm. But once you do get to that point, it is super nice that you can practice even really realizing it.
Yeah, it takes time, but I think it's worth it in the end. Mm-hmm. And once you step that barrier, that barrier of just having to think everything you're doing, it becomes easier also to learn moves and to learn things without thinking of it. And I think there's in the past 3.5 years since I pretty much actively stopped doing cardistry, I still had a deck of cards and just was idling with a deck in my hands. And I realized a few months ago that I actually learned a lot of moves during those 3 years without realizing it, just by idling with the cards and not really thinking of it, compared to before when I was actually actively doing cardistry. I was actively posting and actively thinking of it, so I was maybe more efficient, but you can still learn moves without thinking of them, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think everybody has that kind of moment where they'll do something and they don't really realize what they did, and it's frustrating. Yeah. You want to know what you did because you're like, oh, that was cool, but I'm not sure what I did. I think that's just...
I think I lost a lot of moves.
A pretty unique experience to cardists, I think. I think most people have experienced that. So a new thing I've been doing towards the end of the show is just asking people for music recommendations, because from what I've seen, pretty much all cardists are really into music and really like exploring it. So do you have any music recommendations for us?
I listen a lot to a lot of music. Basically music is basically what replaced cardistry in my life. Mm-hmm. But I guess I listen to a lot of old music, like David Bowie, Pink Floyd, Roxy Music, Joy Division. Lately I listen also a lot to a French band called Feu Chatterton. It's like a French rock pop slam band, which I really like. I could go on about music for a while. Yeah, you can listen to Velvet Scaffoldings on Spotify. It's my band. We released music like a year ago. It's pretty weird, but it's more like if you like Pink Floyd music, It's progressive rock, sort of the same style. And we're going to try to release more music in the future. But yeah, so it's called Velvet Scaffoldings, and we have an EP called The Edge.
Perfect, yeah. So there's obviously some really good options there. Thank you for putting your thought in there. Obviously, your profile picture is you with a guitar, so I figured you have some good insight.
Yeah.
So at the end of the show, what I usually do is I say what I call roll out the close-up pad, and that's just my fancy way of saying, is there anything that you would like to promote or any last nugget you would like to leave the audience with before we kind of head out?
Yeah, I'd say if there is anybody that is organizing Cardistrytalk here listening to this, please do it in Europe because I would love to go, but it's always like really far away.
Yeah.
And like in China, I mean, it was in Berlin a year, I think, but I mean, I guess now I'm older and I could go pretty much anywhere in Europe, but I was actually looking forward to it this year after COVID and everything. But since it's in San Diego, I won't be able to come. But if it's just do it in Paris, that would be pretty great. Paris is a great city. But yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess.
As always, I'll have linked to Baptiste's stuff in the description if you want to check them out and you're watching it here on YouTube. Baptiste, obviously, thank you for your time and giving your insights on cardistry. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody learned something, had a little bit of fun, and hopefully gained a little bit of knowledge. I will see you guys next week. It was a pleasure having you, Baptiste, here, and we'll head out now.
Yeah, thank you, Gil. Yeah, it was really nice.